Hello to all the good people. This week, Friday the 16th of September, I'm going to continue where I left off last week. You know, we had the mission a couple of weeks ago and it was called Hope for the Future, not Hope for one weekend. So as the weeks go, I will be sharing more and more about the insights we gained from that mission. And last week, I shared with you session 1 of Heather Lynn's testimony about her son. Today, I'm going to give you part 2 of her testimony. She did part 1. She's going to do part 2 now. And I'm going to just do the introduction of Mark himself, the said son, the son in question. Just an introductory part to his talk. And then hopefully through the week, I will be able to share little bits more of his testimony and others who came with him. I'm not deliberately trying to leave it all until Fridays. My weeks have just been very packed full and it takes time to get these videos processed, but I'll do what I can to start sending these out a little more regularly until you've got the whole picture. The whole picture being that God never leaves us in the lurch. It doesn't matter what's going on in our lives. It doesn't matter how helpless and hopeless we think a situation is. There is always hope in the Lord. And so this family, as I said last week, have used their story to bring across to us how God works in our lives. And at some point I will share some of Rob's actual teachings and slides, not entirely, but bits and pieces of them. So I hope you're going to enjoy this journey for a little while with me as we continue to ask, where next, what now what is God doing? COVID has changed everything. Where are the churches going? Is there a future? Is there hope for the future? And as we ask those questions each week, I hope we will gain a little more of the insight. And the little we take in will have great effects in our lives. So here is Heather Lynn part 2, and then just a snippet of her son Mark. Enjoy.
Okay, so last night we got to the end of our long prayers that went on for 7 years. And we got to the what now? You know, Lord, this is where we've been heading, and here we are, and what now? But God had told us He had a plan, and now He's going to start working His plan out. Mark started studying, and then came to us one day and said, you know what, I think I need to start a halfway house. And I think your house would be very suitable. And we went, hell no. Where do you think we would live if you wanted to do that? So we went off to lunch with friends of ours who happened to be the treasurer at our church. And in the middle of lunch we were saying, this crazy kid thinks he can just take over our house. And Gareth turned around and he said, but we have a house. We have just been left a house. It's been left to our church by a person who was a teacher at Boys High. And he says he would like to use this house for young people. So it's a good thing for Mark to have this house. And we went, okay, fine. So we had our halfway house. God had a plan and He was going to provide. The halfway house carried on for a few years, quite a few years, and Mark, who is always one step ahead, decided, actually, you know what, I'd like a rehab. And we started to look around and nothing was coming up. But the person from the rehab where Mark had been to said, you know, Mark, you really need to go and work in a rehab first. Why don't you come here? So off they went, he and his wife, and worked in the rehab. jumping now to 2016. He'd been there since about 2010. And things started to change in that rehab. The owner wanted to sell it, the programs were changing, and eventually Mark resigned and he came to stay with us, and he'd been offered another job, and they went to see this other rehab, and Mark came back and he said, yeah, I could go and work there, but I'm really not crazy about it. I'd like to start my own rehab. And the ever-practical Ma and Pa went, well, with what exactly, Mark, would you like to do this? But we forget always. I have these discussions with God sometimes. I say, please will you stop giving my child everything he asks for, because you're not teaching him perseverance or patience or any of these things we try to teach our children. So Mark says, no, but I'd really like to start my own rehab. A little later, a facilitator from our group in Alberton phoned and said, Mark, what are you going to do? And Mark says, I would like to start my own rehab, but I haven't got anywhere to start it. And he says, well, we happen to have a house in Campus Russ. Why don't you go and start there and see what happens? So off we went to Campus Russ. It wasn't a huge house, but Mark said it would take about 12 people, and it would probably take him a year to fill up that house. And then we would decide what we were going to do. We moved in at the end of November. By the end of January, we were full. And of course, Mark started going, we need another house, we need another house. We ended up staying with Gail one weekend, looking at properties in Zunini, and we found what we called the Pink Mansion in Mahuberskloof, and we set our hearts on the Pink Mansion. But of course we had no money, but we dreamed before. And we went along and we kept saying we want the Pink Mansion, and it was very difficult to get a bond because we hadn't been in business for more than about 5 months, so the banks were not really interested in us. So Rob and I went to supper with some friends one Friday evening. The conversation started, how's it going with Mark? And we said, no, it's going well, but he now wants a bigger place. And we found a bigger place, but it costs a good couple of million, and we don't have that kind of money. And we carried on with other conversations, and a bit later he said, so do you think this will work? And we said, oh yeah, it's going well, and there's a lot of need out there. By the end of the evening, as we were about to leave, he said, I'll give you the money. So we went, really? He said, oh no, I'll loan him the money. When he can get a bond, he can pay me back. So Monday morning, with great excitement, we phoned up to buy the Pink Mansion. And then, except that the Pink Mansion had been sold on the Thursday before. So we said, okay, Lord, what now? Mark says, well, maybe it's not so bad, because I've already found a social worker, and I've already found a nurse, so maybe I should be closer to this property. So we said, okay, start looking again. 2 days later, somebody walks into Mark and says, you know, my wife has said I must sell my business up the road, and I think it might be suitable for you. And so I get a phone call from Mark after he looked at it and says, Mom, I think you better come, because this, I think, is where God wants us to be. And so it was perfect. Had a dormitory, had a big house, had a new kitchen that had just been built, all sorts of things. And God was working his plan out. We have watched in wonder as God continues to work his plan out in strange and mysterious ways. And every so now and then Mark will come along and he'll go, you know what? You know that slab that's standing empty on my property? I think we need to build a new dining room and some counseling rooms and whatever on there. And we go, okay, whatever. Next thing, we get plans, like beautiful plans. And I say, where did these come from? Rob says, they're architectural plans because this is the architect's handwriting. We phone Mark, we say, Mark, where did you get the plans from? He says, funny thing, Mom, one of my residents is a very well-known architect and she drew them up for me. And so we had another day where Mark said, oh, you know, I'm getting so many people, I need another car. You know, these requests come at us like Rob and I at the Bank of England or something. We need another car. And here we were at lunch, and this was in the early days, and we happened to mention to the lady that now Mark needed another car. She says, oh, I have one that he can have. She worked for an NGO, and they had projects, and when a project finished, they had to get rid of the things involved in that project, one of which was a car. And so on Tuesday morning, the car arrived in my drive and said, here you are, here's your car for Mark. So when God says he has a plan, trust me, he has a plan. And we have great excitement watching the plan come to fruition. It's like an adventure. You know, Mark starts going, guys, I really think, and we go, uh-oh, hold on to the armchair, something's happening. But it's been great fun, and it has been, after the 7 years of praying, it has been such a great blessing to watch God fulfill his plan. So hang in there, people, keep praying, keep hoping, and keep going forward. Thank you.
Watched an interesting little clip yesterday that really made me think. And this guy said, you know, my dad used to walk to work. I'm fortunate enough to drive like a VW to work. My son's going to be driving a Mercedes-Benz to work. And my grandson will be driving a Ferrari. But unfortunately, my great-grandson will be walking to work again. And they looked and asked why, and he said, well, tough times create strong character. Strong character, unfortunately, creates easy times. Easy times create weak character, and weak character creates tough times again. And when I heard that, I really thought a lot about putting that into perspective of trying to understand. Perhaps, and I was sitting here this morning, most of the old people left. It was very old this morning, so I'm glad the young people were drinking and only woke up at 11 or something, I'm not too sure. But I was wondering to myself, like, you know, the older generation obviously had it a lot tougher than what we did, and I wonder if us had it a lot easier, and I wonder if we're actually creating times that are just too easy, that's not building strong enough character. And I wonder if we worry too much about the tough times and just want the tough times to go away. And I look at, I like Facebook, there's some good things. It was talking about somebody who was born in the 1918 and like what they went through up to this stage versus what we've gone through over the last, I'm 40 next month. 40 years, which is scary. And to put it into perspective of the challenges that we face. And I saw something now, it says, you know, I've got an apartment, well, at least I've got an apartment, even though I want a house. And at least I've got a car, even though it's not a Mercedes-Benz. And sometimes in life we've got to be really, really mindful of acknowledging and being grateful and accepting what we actually have. Because the human condition in my mind is one of always wanting more. We're never satisfied with where we are at. The other thing I read that triggered my brain quite a lot is like, you are exactly where you wanted to be 5 years ago. And I'm 6 years into another journey. I've been in a journey for 16 years, and I've had lots of little journeys, and every time I get to this point, I'm exactly where I wanted to be 5 years ago. And that's cool, but I start to ask myself, I wonder what I was worrying about 5 years ago. I wonder what I was stressing about. I wonder what I was wasting my time being consumed about 5 years ago, and whether the worries and the times and the wasteful stuff energy that I put into that was actually worth it, because I'm exactly where I wanted to be 5 years ago. And then I ask myself, well, am I satisfied, or am I wanting to be somewhere else? My mom will tell you I want to be a lot of other places. I'm never really satisfied. But I do have this wonderful ability to take snapshots constantly of my life, and to just stop and say, wow, I can't believe it. I posted on Facebook last night. I was leaving work about 6, 7. And as I was leaving, I saw my wife training a whole bunch of residents getting ready for a Halo outreach, which she goes out and helps community dogs, and they do vaccinations and rabies and treats them and brings them back and does all these things. But I looked at this group of people at 7:30 on a Friday night training to go out and serve the communities on a Saturday morning. And there was just such an amazing sense of, this is cool. This is not somebody sitting on the couch. This is not somebody like exhausted from the week of work, wanting to go and play PlayStation, or wanting to go and call in a ball, or wanting to go out drinking, or wanting to go and... These are people that are like on a Friday night excited and getting excited and training and putting in the effort to go and help people and animals. And that's going to fill them up. They're still busy today. They do it every Saturday, and every Saturday they help 150, 200 dogs. And it blows my mind. And I look at those kind of things that happen around my life, and I'm like, this is amazing stuff. And I teach this often. I really, really, really teach this often, because I think we've gotten it wrong. I think we've gotten it wrong quite badly. I think we worry too much about our own lives. And I think we worry too much about what we need. And I think we worry too much about how God needs to help us. And our life is this self-feeding thing of, God give me. God give me strength. God give me this. God give me that. God get me out of the situation. God make my life better. God give me more. It's the exact opposite of what we should be doing, which is like, hey God, what can I give you?